Chronicles of the Origin System, Excerpt 45, Lavos. They called it Deobeth Kra, a fortress of iron and silence, buried beneath the venomous storms of Venus, a place where the unworthy were sent to rot, where the sins of the Orichan were locked away and forgotten. Here, the walls whispered with suffering, the air thick with the scent of rust and blood, but the greatest fear within these halls was not the prisoners, it was a single man, Yavi. The Orichan feared him more than death itself, an Archimedean, a master of alchemy, a heretic whose knowledge could unravel the Empire's foundation. Transmutation, an art they deemed forbidden, a crime worse than treason. They feared it could turn the lowly into gods, that the wretched might rise and consume them. They feared that even the Jade Light would not be enough to unmake him, so they did not burn him, they caged him. And to keep him caged, they sent Lavos, the Warden, the Executioner, a man of brutal efficiency, bound to his duty by steel and will. It was Lavos who broke Yavi's bones when he defied orders. It was Lavos who silenced his whispers with the stock of a gun. And it was Lavos who watched as Yavi scrawled his madness into the walls. Symbols of snakes and shifting forms, marks of a world beyond flesh and bone. The others saw only heresy, but Lavos saw something else. The prisoner never screamed, not when the beating shattered his ribs, not when the starvation hollowed his body. Instead, he whispered, low, insidious words, curling like smoke in Lavos' ear. He spoke of change, of evolution, of the folly of chains and the truth of transformation, and something inside the Warden listened. Yavi's sentence was changed. The Orichan grew tired of waiting. They decreed his end would come by cellular reversal, a death meant to erase, to reduce flesh to liquid, to make a lesson of his arrogance. Lavos was given his orders. He was given the ceremonial garb. He was given the weapon. But when the day of execution came, something was different. Lavos no longer struck the prisoner. His hands did not tremble with fury. Instead, they trembled with understanding. He draped Yavi in the hood of an Archimedean, honoring the man who had been condemned. He raised his weapon. He met the eyes of the Orichan Warden, and as Yavi whispered his final words, Lavos did not fire. Instead, he bowed. The execution was carried out, but not as the Orichan had decreed. Lavos did not erase Yavi, he transmuted him, the prisoner's flesh melting into a shifting, writhing mass, twisting in ways no mortal body should. Then, from the pulsing remains, something emerged. A serpent, black, glistening, born from the ruin of a man. It coiled itself around Lavos' left arm, fangs bared, eyes burning with knowledge. Then a second serpent slithered from Lavos' own flesh. Change had taken root, and it would not stop. The guards did not understand. They cheered, believing the Alchemist undone, until the massacre began. Lavos turned, he raised his hand, and vials shattered against the iron walls. A tide of venom and fire swept through the prison, devouring flesh, dissolving bone. He strode forward, unrelenting as screams filled the corridors of Deobeth Kra. His body was no longer just his own. It had changed. He had changed. And through him, the alchemy of Yavi would never die. When the fires died out, there was nothing left but ruin. Not one warden survived, not one jailer escaped. Only a single trembling floor washer named Bekran Zavd lived to tell the tale. He spoke of the moment Lavos walked through the gates, the black serpent writhing on his arm, the symbols of change carved into his skin. He called him an executioner turned prophet of transmutation, a man who had become the very thing the Orichan feared most, a warframe not built, but forged. This is Lavos, the Dark Alchemist, the Warden who became the harbinger of change, the whisper that turned into a storm. And though the Orichan are gone, their fear still lingers, because change cannot be killed, it cannot be caged, it only waits to be unleashed. Lavos, the Elemental Ascendant. Oh hey dreamers, fancy meeting you here. On this episode of Chronicles of the Origin System, we are checking out Lavos, the Elemental Ascendant. Now, one would not expect a Warframe suppressed by cooldowns to surpass level cap endurance, but Lavos has true potential. This Warframe, similar to Hildren, can find survivability to be the ultimate price to pay in the name of diversity. The cooldowns may come in as the greatest benefit to the Warframe in endurance as the need for energy becomes increasingly necessary as the missions progress. Lavos bypasses all these issues by simply reducing his own cooldowns via his abilities and augments. Now let's get out there and embody the avatar that Baruch wishes he could become. Let's take a look at abilities and synergies, the art of transmutation. Passive. Energy and universal orbs give Lavos status immunity for 10 seconds. Hold any ability to imbue the next cast with additional elemental damage and status. The cooldown for the orb pickup is 5 seconds. It is to be noted that Synth Fiber offers a straight bypass to this cooldown, and allows Lavos to completely bypass this issue, so if you're looking for a bit of quality of life, fit that bad boy over the Duplex Bond mod. This passive offers quite the incredible benefits. 1. We don't need Prime Sure-Footed. Sorry, Nightmare Frame. 2. The Hold cast allows us to not only imbue 4 status procs onto our abilities, but when paired with Valence Formation, we can imbue those elements onto our weapons as well. Valence Formation is a passive augment for Lavos that enables weapons to gain the corresponding element of the imbue. This damage bonus is locked at 200% and has a base duration of 20 seconds, which is moddable by duration. Ability 1. Ophidian Bite. Lash out with the Toxic Serpentine Strike, consuming the target to heal Lavos. Hold to imbue all abilities with Toxin. Ophidian Bite is definitely a guilty pleasure for an ability. It doesn't do much on its own for a shield gate focused build, but it will definitely heal for a base of 15% of total damage dealt. The ability deals 1000 damage and force procs Toxin. It deals another instance of damage based on the imbue for 1000 damage and a force proc of that element. A little known fact is Ophidian Bite will make enemies finishable, so that Crescendo build should not be slept on. Swift Bite is an augment for Ophidian Bite that augments the ability range by an additional 30%. When hitting 4 enemies with Ophidian Bite, Swift Bite will reduce the cooldown of abilities by 4 seconds. This is moddable by efficiency, range, and strength. Ability 2. Pillage. Pillage a percentage of shields and armor of nearby enemies to replenish Lavos' own shield and overshields. Combined with Molt Augmented and 1 Tau Forge Strength Shard, we are sitting at 333% strength, just above the 328% requirement to fully armor strip enemies with Pillage and Corrosive Projection. We replace Pillage over Vile Rush for that juicy armor/shield strip. Lavos has issues pushing survivability to level cap, but with the Mecha Hound's Guardian, Pillage's Shield Gate, Lavos' status immunity, and Rolling Guard's invulnerability, it'll be very hard to die. This is also moddable by duration, range, and strength. Ability 3. Transmutation Probe. Launch a probe that converts health and energy orbs into universal orbs that provide both, and ammo pickups into universal ammo pickups. The probe shocks enemies in close proximity. Each electrocuted foe reduces other ability cooldowns by 1 second. Hold to imbue the next ability cast with electricity. Now we're talking. Transmutation Probe is so tasty for Lavos. This ability synergizes with Lavos' passive by having the universal orbs created by Transmutation Probe provide Lavos with status immunity. The probe further decreases the cooldown timers of abilities by 1.5 seconds per enemy, which is affected by efficiency. The 6-meter radius of the probe is affected by range, however, the distance of travel by the probe is not. The probe travels 15 meters per second for 3 seconds. Tapping the ability a second time will lock the probe in place until the 3 seconds are over. Information aside, the probe is pretty cute. Ability 4. Catalyze. Catalyst probes erupt from Lavos and douse combatants in a fiery gel. Damage is doubled for each element afflicting an enemy. Hold to imbue the next ability cast with heat. I mean, my oh my. Let's talk about dialing it up a notch. Imagine galvanized aptitude on an ability. Now stop imagining and look at what this thing can do. So catalyze damage equals base damage plus imbued damage times 2 to the power, the unique number of status effects, times 1 plus strength mods. At 333% strength, our base damage is at 2000 and our imbued damage is at 2000. Our number of unique elemental statuses is at 10, so we have catalyzed damage equals 2000 plus 2000 times 2 to the power times 10 times 3.33. Catalyzed damage then equals 4000 times 1024 times 3.33, putting our catalyzed damage at 13,639,680. So that's 13,639,680 damage with a forced heat proc. I mean, my god, this is literally busted. Not to mention the heat proc will synergize with Archon Vitality and things like Heat Inherit. The equation without heat inherit is the total heat damage equaling 0.5 times modded base damage times 6 seconds times 1 plus the duration modifiers times 2. The 1 plus duration modifiers from Lavos' status duration bonus and 2 coming from the double heat proc that Archon Vitality applies. So our total heat damage equals 0.5 times 13,639,680 times 6 seconds times 2.51 times 2. Our total heat damage then is equaling 205,413,580.8, or at least the 13,639,680 damage per second for the heat procs. I mean, what the funk? And this is without equating viral stacks, mind you. So if we're at full viral stacks, we are at 57,968,640 damage per second, or a grand total of 873,007,718.4. After the modded status duration is up. But we don't just let our heat procs die off like that, so grab that Furis or the Kompressa and blow that Demolisher back to the Strata Relay. This isn't even including heat inherent bonuses. All in all, Catalyze does more than anyone could have imagined. A heat inherent nuke that is easily capable of absolute devastation towards single targets as well as large groups. Yep, we're doing it again. Conan the dang barbarian type stuff. Yeah, that feels weird. Now that we have burned through our abilities, let's take a look at our Archon Shards. Lavos benefits greatly from Crimson Tauforge Shards, enhancing his ability strength and duration to maximize his elemental devastation. One Crimson Tauforge Shard gives us plus 15% ability strength, while 4 Crimson Tauforge Shards give us 15% ability duration each, totaling 60% for a max duration of 251%. Now keep in mind this also affects the status duration trait, which is unique to Lavos and scales 1-to-1 with duration. So why these choices? One Strength Shard plus Molt Augmented gives us a total of 333% ability strength, which allows us to single cast Armor Strip with Pillage. It also directly augments Catalyze, pushing its devastating damage to astronomical levels. Duration enhances Transmutation Probe, allowing for greater cooldown reductions. It also applies the dot status procs that are applied from Lavos' weapon, and maximizes our heat inherent mechanics from Valence Formation, which directly applies to Catalyze once we apply the passive and cast Catalyze. So now that we have broken down the gritty details that make up Lavos' abilities, let's move on to playstyle, the cycles of change. Our playstyle and ability rotation is thankfully pretty straightforward in that each and every ability will either help the refresh time of our cooldowns or amplify the damage output. Now keep in mind that Lavos survives perfectly fine up to level 1000 content. You may want to rotate between abilities in this order. Step 1. Cast Pillage on targets. Cast Pillage often to maintain a healthy shield gate. Between Pillage casts, we may utilize Rolling Guard and the Mecha Hound, which can offer us Protect or Guardian respectively for shield support. Step 2. Apply max status procs, up to 10 not counting physical elements which don't count towards Catalyze, and heat inherit via the Furis or Kompressa and the Mecha Hound. Step 3. Hold to add heat passive to Catalyze and cast Catalyze on target. Enemies like Thrax love getting ripped to shreds by the 13,639,680 upfront damage this ability can deal. Step 4. Refresh Catalyze via Transmutation Probe and then refresh TP via Ophidian Bite. Tag enemies with your third ability for better cooldowns. The more enemies that are affected by Transmutation Probe, the longer cooldown refresh you'll receive for Catalyze. Also remember to immediately cast your first ability when around at least a group of 4 to not only heal you, but reduce the cooldown of Transmutation Probe and all other abilities via the Swift Bite Augment. Step 5. Rinse, wash, and repeat. Now against priority targets like Demolishers, we will follow the same rotation, but will potentially add in the option to expedite the damage via Harmony. Begin by casting Pillage to armor strip the priority target and prime ourselves for a shield gate. Then immediately begin priming the enemy with your loyal best boy and any secondary weapon that has a massive status chance and secondary encounter. After stacking all 10 elemental statuses, cast Catalyze, dealing a minimum of 13,639,680 damage, followed by 205,413,580.8 extra damage over 15 seconds. Now if you want an absolutely devastating insta-kill, you can expedite this damage via heavy attacking with Harmony. Now let's talk about the weapon arsenal of the Alchemist. The Cedo. The Cedo is Lavos' signature shotgun, renowned for its unique mechanics and synergy with status effects. Its primary fire mode unleashes fully automatic buckshot rounds with a high critical chance, dealing increased damage for each individual status effect afflicting the target. The alternate fire launches a glaive that ricochets and explodes, boasting an extremely high status chance, making it an excellent tool for priming enemies with various status ailments. When paired with the primary Crux Arcane, the Cedo's performance is enhanced greatly by providing significant bonuses to ammo efficiency and status chance, further amplifying its effectiveness in applying and capitalizing on its own status effects. The Furis. The Furis, when upgraded with the Incarnon Genesis, transforms into a formidable secondary weapon. The Incarnon mode introduces a powerful heat beam attack, drastically increasing its damage output and utility. This evolution makes the Furis capable of handling high-level enemies with ease. We will be modding the Furis to apply only heat and will stack not only status and damage, but a faction mod to turn it into our heat inherit weapon of choice. We will then add the secondary Encumber Arcane, which synergizes well with the Furis Incarnon, as it enhances its status effect application by having a 24% chance per status ailment to add a second random status effect. Now, with 124% status chance fully weighted into heat while in the Incarnon mode, this will drastically increase overall damages with 13 different status effects. The Furis' base damage can reach up to 1660% from Galvanized Shot. Furthermore, the Incarnon converts the Furis into an able-bodied primer as well as a DPS weapon, making it a potent choice for both crowd control and single-target elimination. The Kompressa. The Kompressa is Ureli's signature pistol, launching virulent, high-pressurized water globules that envelop targets and explode with torrential force. While it has a limited range of 35 meters and projectiles with travel time, its high status chance make it effective for applying status effects, particularly viral. We also choose to add secondary Encumber to this weapon. Pairing the Kompressa with the secondary Encumber Arcane enhances its status application capabilities, allowing for rapid stacking of status effects, which is particularly useful for priming enemies before engaging with melee attacks or other weapons. The Harmony. Harmony is Jade's signature scythe and one of the single strongest melee weapons in the game due to its unique synergy with dot status. Its heavy attacks detonate damage over time status effects, instantly inflicting their full damage. Additionally, heavy attack kills grant increased status duration, making it a formidable weapon for dealing with tough enemies. The Melee Afflictions Arcane complements Harmony's mechanics by duplicating dot status effects when knockdown or ragdoll is applied, which will increase the damage or status effects and enhance the weapon's overall performance in applying and benefiting from status ailments. So here are our final thoughts on the Alchemist of Absolute Devastation. Lavos is a Warframe without limitations. His cooldown-based abilities grant infinite uptime. His status-boosted abilities rival the most broken weapons, and his synergy with Heat Inherit pushes his DPS into billions. A Warframe once overlooked, now transformed into an apocalyptic elemental force.
You are not just a warrior, you are transmutation itself. Let the Orcan tremble, for change is coming, and it cannot be stopped.
And there you have it, Tenno. Lavos, the Elemental Ascendant, defying all expectations and turning cooldowns into pure destruction. With status stacking synergies, absurd damage scaling, and a playstyle that rewards strategic ability rotation, Lavos proves that energy is overrated when you have alchemy on your side. Now, whether you're shredding through high-level enemies, melting demolishers with Catalyze, or breaking the limits of what's possible in endurance runs, this build shows that Lavos is far from just a cooldown frame. He's a walking nuclear reaction waiting to happen. But what do you think, Tenno? Are you ready to break the origin system with Lavos, or do you have another build that takes him even further? Let me know in the comments. And as always, if you enjoyed the video and want to see more deep dives into Warframe builds, mechanics, and lore, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss the next chapter of the Chronicles of the Origin System. Until next time, stay sharp, stay deadly. This is the Demon Prince, and I'll see you in the Void, Dreamers.